Hello and welcome to our new show, Secret Sauce, where we have questions posed by you guys and ourselves to people within the industry to have a deeper look at what goes on within within the esports industry. In this season, we're tackling coaching, and we have two experienced coaches with us, Vertrezz and Mr. G. We have myself, Jamil, and Omar as well on the show. And without further ado, let's start. How much planning and strategy is too much? When is improvisation necessary? So we see some organizations again being not being flexible with what they want to do. They feel that it's set in stone, and other organizations are very flexible and lenient and lean more into we'll make it work. So what is a sweet spot, for example, between both? Maybe one is better than the other. Maybe too much strategy is also very rigid. So what's your take on that? Shall we start with?
Can I ask Omar something on this one?
Go ahead.
Because Omar, you know, like this has come up before.
Yeah.
About improvisation.
Yeah.
And I think you had a really nice take on it.
Yeah.
About, you know, adaptable, flexible. Where's improvisation? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you go over again what you might have thought about it?
So when we were doing the discussion, we were saying that a team that is flexible can improvise. And my question was, but how do you differentiate between improvisation and experience? So if an experienced player has played for like 10 years, they've seen almost everything. So they're just implementing old strategies, or like they're just doing a mix and match between strategies. They're not doing something, how can we say it, outside of the box.
Yeah.
It's not improvisation. It's just they know 10,000 things and they're just applying one of them, versus someone that is fairly new. Let's say they've been playing the game for 2 years. They know 100 things. So everything this experienced player does would feel outside of the box for the new player. So for the new player, it's improvisation if they do something outside of the 100 things they know.
Mm-hmm.
But for the experienced player, the 10,000 things they know is their playbook. So it's not really improvisation. So this is why when I asked,
and I remember that, because now I'd like to, if it's okay, jump to Vertrezz and ask a question there, because what you just said was, just to get it right, very experienced player, very large playbook.
Yeah.
They may be flexible, but they don't really have to improvise. But Vertrezz, in your experience, how much time does an average player maybe have with an org? Because part of it is not just having your own experience playbook as a player, but your own experience playbook with teams.
Yeah.
How much time does a player in esports really have to collect, to not have to improvise? Because in my short experience, they seem to always have to improvise. And I wish that they could do what Omar had talked about.
Yeah.
What's your experience on this?
Well, I think that the average time of players and teams depends on like in esports, it really depends on the title and of the duration of the games, like how long it's already out. Because, for example, if we take a look at Counter-Strike teams, they sometimes have over like 2, 3, 4 years of the same rosters with minor changes, and they probably start to improvise. Like they stop improvising after, I think you need at least a year in a team or in an org that you already know what's happening, so you can just rely on all the strategy. But before, you need a lot of improvising to find the right strategy. So it's very individual, I would say. I think it's still quality over quantity is what I wrote down as a keyword for this.
Mm-hmm.
So depends. You have like a million things you can do, but you strategize it probably in the end so good that you don't even have to improvise if you don't know what to do right now. So at the beginning, it's always that you just have like random things that you try out for trainings in esport. And at some point, you will learn like what exactly you need for a team, and then you plan out the whole week, and you just keep on going with that, and you don't change plans on the go.
Okay. Yeah. How do you do that in Valorant? Like Valorant's, you said length of a game, that the game's been on the market. So Valorant is, how does a coach support a team that potentially hasn't got or had that much time, either in the game or with a team, that they can rely on a playbook, let's say that, and they've really kind of got to still go the improvisation, adaptability route? What would you offer coaches there?
I mean, this is hard to say because I have like the unpopular opinion, or which that's a bit bigger every day, is that you don't even need a coach in Valorant because the team does everything. And I think if you look at the historical data, then you can see the first Masters winners, for example, didn't even have a coach. So you don't really need one to strategize like that, because then you have your own team captain that does it himself or herself, and then that's really individual, because at this point in Valorant right now, there is not yet a go-to strategy because every team does their own stuff. It's like the early days of Valorant. Yet,
like watching everybody.
Yeah, and then you try to copy stuff from the successful teams, then successful teams fall down and the new team comes up, then you switch up your strategy and you try to copy them a bit in that regard, and then they fall off again, and then in the end, like, you have to find your own middle ground in that.
Okay. Just to go back on what you considered the unpopular opinion, you don't need a coach. I think that's a really limited view of coaching. Simply because I think in all of our experiences when it came to the games, when you're locked into the system, so if you're a player and you're locked into the system of your team, you might, despite doing VOD reviews, you may not always see yourself. And if the rest of the team is not really good at giving you extremely good feedback, and you're very good at taking it, then I think there's an angle missing. And we've seen teams, like I'm a performance coach rather than a strategy coach, but I've seen strategy coaches, we've had really good conversations, because when we end up talking to a team or working with a team, we're coming at them from two sides. And that kind of alleviates blind spots. And so I think teams that always have money, or orgs that have money, they've got some of them 2 coaches, some of them 2 analysts, some of them, and I think what they're really doing here is they're trying to minimize risk, minimize blind spots. So ultimately, I don't think you can ever take a coach away. And as a friend of mine said, who was first an ice hockey player, then an Olympic ice hockey coach. He said, if you want to be on the ice hockey rink playing ice hockey, then you're not ready to coach. The time you decide to be a coach and to be the best coach out there is when you start to bring value. Other than that, it's only halfway.
Yeah, I wanted to add a point. I didn't mean with the opinion that you don't need a coach at all, but the way that coaches are implemented if you take a look at Valorant, they are closely following Counter-Strike steps, maybe a bit of Overwatch steps. So the traditional coach does all the strategies and tells the team what to play. But I think Valorant is a bit different in that regard, that you probably go best with 2 analysts that give you all the data that you need, and with a performance coach at the same time that does all the other angles. But a traditional coach that just does strategies is not needed in Valorant 100%. So that is what I meant. All the other points, of course, because a staff team is always needed, but a traditional coach that tells you how to play, I think, is not needed to win in Valorant.
Are we assuming that every player is a thinking smart player? I know we'll probably end up in this conversation later on, but I think, because
You
that's
need
the
one
other
of them.
struggle.
I think
You
you
need
need
one
one of them.
smart player, or
You need one smart player in the team that can guide the team.
That's
That's like
the
the
in-game.
in-game leader.
In-game leader.
Yeah. A smart
Yeah.
in-game leader, because sometimes the smart player can't.
Valorant, I think if you're going to be a tier 1 championship team,
Yeah.
every player is a thinking player.
Yeah,
Not a single. You don't look at elite teams
Yes,
anywhere and have a non-thinking, hey, I'll just go along for the ride kind of guy. Yeah, but I get it. It's fun. Good conversation.
I understand where that comes from, that everyone needs to be a thinking player, because everyone has vision in this game. Everyone has information that they want to relay to the in-game leader. So you can't be passive. If you're passive, then there's a blind spot in the team.
Yeah.
If that's...
I'm sure we're going to talk about players later on. So
Yeah.
we'll leave that for there.
Definitely.